Hi, I'm Liz. Welcome to my channel, Making It Easy with Liz. Today we're going to make a fleece hat. A really cute, beautiful fleece hat, double lined, and really super easy, only 2 seams. And I've taken what I've learned from other YouTube channels and I brought it all together and I added my own spin to it, and now I've got it down to a really easy. They fit fabulous, and check it out. I got so much coverage on my ears. It's awesome. Look at that. Isn't that cute? I personally do not look good in hats, but I love it, and it's great, and it's nice and tight, and the wind doesn't get in it, and I'm going to show you how to make it right now. So I've got my pattern piece all measured out and cut, and I sprayed the back of it with the quilt basting spray, and you can feel it's not like sticky, but it's got a tack to it. And now I'm going to lay out my fabric, right sides facing each other, and the way that you find out what is the right side of your fleece is by taking it, and when you pull on the stretchy side, see how that rolls over? It rolls over to the wrong side of the fabric every time. So you want to do that on the stretchy side and just give it a little tug and see how that rolls. So that's a great way of figuring it out. All right, we're going to lay these out. And the fleece sticks to itself anyway, so you don't have to worry about this shifting. So this is what makes it so easy, is I'm not going to use any pins to cut this out. I'm going to use my rotary cutter on my rotary mat, using my rotary ruler and my pattern piece, no pins, no nothing. And that's what makes it easy. So we're going to make sure these both are smoothed out properly. Okay, my pattern, so my stretch is going in this direction, which is the longest piece of my fabric. Okay, so see, this says stretch right here. We want the long side on the stretchy side. And I'm just going to go ahead and place this on there. Now, if you have a pattern on your fabric that definitely has to go up or down the right way, you want to make sure that you've got it laid properly. So this down here is the bottom of our hat, and this is the top. So when you're looking at your hat, you want to see whatever's written on there, like a college name or something like that. So you want to pay attention to your orientation of your fabric. And so I'm just smoothing this down. Now see, that's stuck on there. That's great. And now I'm just going to take my rotary cutter and I'm going to cut out my pieces. So I'm just lining this up with my pattern, and then I'm going to cut it with my rotary cutter here. Now what we want to do is we want to save a strip of fabric that is not with the stretchy side. So this is our short side, so save yourself a strip of fabric about the width of what you're going to do your fringe in, because this is what we're going to tie it all together with, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And it doesn't have to be real long. So there's my extra strip for us to tie that together. So I'm going to throw that over to the side. And now I'm just going to continue cutting out my pieces. So I have my pieces cut out now, and I'll just remove my paper pattern. This is great, eh? And it doesn't leave anything on the fabric. And I can reuse this again. So the stickiness will last. Okay, so now we're going to we have both our pieces, and we have right sides facing each other. And we're going to pin along this bottom part here. And I like to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance because I don't know, it's just easier for me to use, and then I trim it down after I sew my seam. But I tried a 1/4 inch and it just sort of shifted too much, and so I like a 1/2 inch. You do whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm going to line this up. Okay, and so we're going to pin this edge this long edge together. We're all pinned together, so now let's go on over to the machine and sew our seam. I like to use one of these seam guards here, or whatever you want to call it. It keeps my fabric from shifting. I'm not a great sewer, so this helps me keep everything in line perfectly. You can use it or you don't have to. I've got it set at 1/2 inch, and I'm going to sew this first seam with a stretch seam stitch. But if you're going to use a straight stitch, use a longer stitch, not a basting stitch, but something a little bit longer to allow the stretch, right? So we're going to start with our first side here. So I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch seam. If you're comfortable with a 1/4 inch, go for it. Now what I would suggest is, if you're unsure, practice on a small piece of fabric, the same as what you're using, and then that way you'll know how your machine's going to react to it. So I'm going to go ahead and sew my seam, and then we'll be back. Okay, I've got my 1/2 inch seam sewn on my long side there, and now I'm going to trim this close so that we don't end up with a bunch of bulk. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that. About like that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting this. So here's the seam that we just did, and I trimmed it. And now I've got my 2 pieces laid out, and they do shift, so you will want to smooth out your pieces and line them up and flip it over and just make sure that they line up. See, it will smooth over. There we go, nice and neat. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut our fringe on the other side here. And to do so, you can either take your tape measure, and then now you're going to measure off how long you want your fringe. So 2 inches is a nice fringe. You could do 1 inch if you want. You could do 3 inches if you want. So, but you have to work whatever that measurement in. That's what you would have worked into your finished measurement here. So we're going to do 2 inch fringe. So what you could do is you can just take your tape measure and you can mark 2 inches with pins. Or you can take your scissors and you can mark on the top here. You could put a little mark on the top there. I marked this at 2 inches, and then you'll just line up your scissors at that mark and then just cut into your fabric. Either way, you just go ahead and do what you want that way. And then you're just going to take your scissors, and we're going to go in. Now you're going to choose how wide you want your fringe to be. 1/2 inch looks pretty good, 1/4 inch. You could even go a little bit thinner if you want. I wouldn't go too thin, but because we're doing it this way, cutting it before we gather it up at the top, you now can have more precise strips of fringe, which enables you to go even thinner if you want to. I didn't like the way some tutorials say to bunch it up and then you go in and you snip it out. I ended up with like weird triangle shapes and skinny weird pieces and just funky stuff. So anyway, this is the best way here. So I'm going to go in. So just cut straight in. Like so. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my fringe, and then we'll be back. Okay, fringe is done. My pom-pom fringe is done. So take out whatever pins you've got. Now we're going to take and we're going to put right sides together. We're going to take our seam here, and we are going to fold it up, and we're going to match our seams. So we're going to open up our seam here, and then we're going to match them. Okay, so we're going to open up our seam, and we're going to match them seam to seam and match it up perfectly because you don't want that to show. Okay, so I'm going to put a pin right in there. Now we're going to pin this whole edge, and I like to go all the way down to the end and pin that first, and then I'll pin whatever is in the middle. I'm placing a pin just above my cut there, because that's where we're going to start and we're going to stop on either end here. Okay, so I'm going to finish pinning the other side, and then we'll meet at the machine. So I have this still set at 1/2 inch, but I've changed my stitch to a straight stitch, a longer straight stitch. Mine is at 3.5. 4 on my machine is basting stitch, and that was too long. So the 3.5 works really nice for this. So I'm going to place at my first pin there. And we want to come down. We are going to back stitch this. A couple back stitch. And I'll just go ahead and sew my seam up. Okay, I'm coming to my last pin here that's just above my cuts on my fringe here. So I'm going to come in slow. Okay, do a little back stitch, little back stitches. And we're going to trim our seam allowance here like we did before. Okay, so here we are. We've got our seams all done, and right now it's inside out. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn it right side out, but we're going to have our liner facing out because that's what we're going to top stitch on. And when you flip the brim up, so when you take and you flip your brim up, you want your nice top stitching to be on this side. So we're going to go ahead and turn it so that it's liner out. Isn't this pretty? Ooh, it's so psychedelic. I love it. So we're just going to take and we're going to shove the print side inside of the liner. And we're going to want to bring our seam to the top because we're going to be top stitching on that. And I like to pin it, so I'm just going to smooth out my fabric. Just make sure your fabric is all smoothed out. Give it a little shake. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to pin. We're going to pin our edge here together. Keep everything together. So we're going to make our seams at the top. Now we're ready to top stitch our hat, and I'm going to change my setting here on my guide to 1/4 inch, which is just to the edge of the foot. I don't trust myself going on the edge, so this comes in really handy. All right, and I'm also going to remove my doohickey here. And I start my stitching in the back, and I'm going to do a decorative stretch stitch, top stitch, just to give it a little bit of flair. If you're going to do a straight stitch top stitch, then make sure you use the longer stitch again, because that is really stretchy. This is where it needs all of its stretch. So I'm going to go ahead and set my machine to my fancy schmancy top stitch. Okay, I like to start on the seam, which is the back of the hat, obviously. Now, look at all these layers I have here, because I have my little bit of a seam allowance inside there. There could be up to 4 layers of fabric, and this is what I did, which was really stupid, and I ended up having to rip the whole entire thing out, is I forgot to drop my foot. And I ended up stitching 3/4 of the thing, and it was a mess. So don't forget to drop your foot. Take your time too. Don't rush this. If you're going to use a stretchy decorative top stitch, don't rush the machine. Here's what my pretty little top stitch looks like on the underside. Isn't that cute? So it matches the blue, so it really doesn't show that much, but it is really cute. Okay, I'm going to finish sewing this, top stitching this, and then we'll tie up our pom-pom, and then we're done. Done! Okay, so here's our pretty little decorative top stitch, and we're still right side out, so now we're going to flip it right side out. Guess I said, did I say we were right side out? We should be right side out. Okay, now it's time to do our fringe. So we're going to take that piece of fabric that we cut earlier, and we're going to tie off our fringe. So what I like to do, we got a lot of fabric here to work with, so I take either side and I just sort of start pleating it on either side with my fingers, and then I just kind of bunch it all together. Now you want to make sure all of your little fringes are even. You may have to pull up the center ones a little bit, and we want to make sure that our hat down here is even. So look in the center and see if your fringes are sort of sucked in there. We want everything to be nice and even. Okay, I'm going to flip it over so that my seam is facing up, because that's where I'm going to tie mine. I want my knot to be in the back there. So. Okay, so once you've got this the way you want it and it looks pretty good, I smush it. I just smush it together, and that helps keep that all together. I like to put my hand in the hat and just see where that's laying, to see if if the folds look nice and neat, and if there's any adjustments that I need to make. Maybe I'll make a little one there. Okay, so smush this together. Lay it down, take your little piece here. Okay, now we are going to tie this in a square knot just below the cut marks, just below the ends of the cuts. And what I like to do is I like to give it a squeeze, and then I like to check it all the way around just to make sure that my tie is where it's supposed to be. And at this point here you can check your fringe and pull it up if it needs to be. Just check and make sure you don't have any tucked in there. Okay, flip it back over. Okay, so that was, I did left over right. I'm going to give this a really nice good pull, tight. And now I'm going to go right over left. And I like to do another knot just for extra measure. Okay, and now we're going to cut these the same length as our fringe. They become fringe. There, look how cute. Oh, I love that with the narrower strips. Look how cute that is. And you could just pull on your strips some more if you need to. There, look how cute! I love it. Oh, the colors are awesome. Well, there you go. I hope you like my tutorial.